Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37 now. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company on our busy Tuesday morning here in the nation's capital. We're going to follow up on that conversation we just had about the arguments before the Supreme Court yesterday with Carrie Severino at 7:05 with Judicial Network. Also at 7:35, our friend Kurt Schlichter, political analyst, columnist, author, bon vivant. He has a brand new book out. We'll talk about the book, but we'll also talk about other stuff going on in the news. That's all coming up. Larry O'Connor here with Julie Gunlock, and joining us now is the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, the kids like to call him, of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, Ron Halber. Ron, thanks for joining us, and a premature happy Hanukkah to you and your organization.
Oh, thank you, and a Merry Christmas to you and Julie.
Thank you. I see that you've, you're starting to get into a little bit of a public spat with a politician, which you don't like doing, by the way. You try to stay above the partisan fray. But my senator, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, has sort of pushed your buttons here, Ron.
Yeah. Well, it didn't really start that he pushed my buttons. Well, let me put it this way. We had a legislative breakfast, which was very well attended by members of Congress and state, local, and federal officials. And at the end, we did a press gaggle, talked about many topics. The senator's name came out, and I just kind of laid it out where I think he's been, where he's been in terms of his public actions, from what he has said, what he has outspokenness about Israel, and how he's been acting legislatively on the topic.
Well, all right. Let me frame it in my language. He seems to be leaning really pro-Hamas lately, and as a Maryland voter, this is not how he ran. He ran as a Democrat who is, he would brag about his great relationship with the state of Israel and Israel's right to exist, and he was very robust in criticizing anybody who would say. And now, because of, again, this is this bizarre, terrifying post-October 7th development, where he seems to be siding with the people who perpetrated that terrorist act.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that the senator is pro-Hamas. I will say that, and I will say that he was once reliably pro-Israel, and now he's become an unreliable legislator on the U.S.-Israel relationship. But what really set me off, and during the conversation, when I was asked about Senator Van Hollen, I basically made 3 points. I basically said that since the conflict had erupted, he has been using his perch as a U.S. senator to constantly go after Israel in public, whether it be floor speeches or public comments or op-eds, that he hasn't shown enough empathy for the people of Israel, that is, their suffering and their strategic situation. Everybody forgets this was a war on 7 fronts, and it was a war of existential survival. It wasn't just Gaza, it was on 7 fronts, and that he has become the leading advocate to undermine the U.S.-Israel relationship in the Senate. And when those are the points I made, and that resulted in him issuing that what many people thought was a personal attack beneath his dignity and that of his office.
What do you make of the fact, and Van Hollen has sort of engaged with you on this, and so it appears to me, Ron, that the fact that he's willing to sort of publicly have a spat with you and your organization, it suggests that the greater support from the Democrat Party for the concerns of the state of Israel and those constituents here in America who care deeply about the subject, they appear to be sort of drifting a bit. Is that fair to say?
I think there's a significant amount of polling data to show that that support for Israel in the Democratic Party has weakened. But I don't put that at the hands necessarily just of the Democratic Party. I mean, the Prime Minister of Israel has conducted himself in a way where he has not shown gratitude. He did not show gratitude to President Biden. He did not show gratitude to a lot of leading Democrats, and also has aligned himself publicly more with the Republican Party and got involved in domestic U.S. politics, and has probably done more than any single individual to undermine the bipartisan relationship between the United States and Israel. So, I thought Biden was very strongly pro-Israel, and it always upset me that the Israeli government, I did not show the proper appreciation for the endless support that they received from the president.
There seems to be, though, in the Democrat, just to add on to what Larry is saying, it seems to be this idea in the Democrat Party that there has to be a diversity of views. They need to hear a diversity of views. Talk to me about that, because, well, is it fine? Because I feel like the diversity of views seems to be, and I know you sort of pushed back on this pro-Hamas, but is there, I mean, when I hear the criticism of Israel, it's usually lies, historically misinformed people, and then they sort of give, and they, yes, I understand that, but then they give the lines that I hear from sort of pro-Hamas mouthpieces. So I don't I'm a little bit confused why we have to have this sort of diversity of views, which it always results in misinformation and Hamas talking points.
Well, when I say a diversity of views, I mean a diversity of views on how pro-Israel we want to be.
Yes.
I mean, for me, I accept it as a fundamental tenet of that normal thinking people would not go ahead and be on the side of a terrorist group that gang rapes women, kills men, and kills babies. Yeah, you would think, but I don't think. But I think the reaction that you're seeing mostly among young people in the Democratic Party is a opposition to what they see as a disproportionate response by Israel to the conflict after they were attacked. And unfortunately, what they're doing is they're getting two things. One, they're misguided. They just don't understand the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict. They don't understand that Israel has fought numerous wars for survival. They don't understand the hostility to terrorism that Israel's been subjected to since its existence. They're looking at a moment in time, and they're seeing all the media attention. Now, look, if you just take out the history and just look at this one moment in time and look at the cameras going through Gaza, you see lots of destruction, right? So that's going to inform your opinion. You're going to say, "Oh my God, what horrible!" What they don't understand, and I'm not saying, and I'll leave it to military historians to decide whether the level of Israel's response was. It was certainly an overwhelming response was necessary. How overwhelming? I'll leave it to military historians. But I can understand how these young people look at that. But what they don't understand is that in the Middle East, being strong is how you survive, and that same strength that Israel displayed during the war, which by the way is respected by the Arab regions, their adversary, and is bringing them closer to peace treaties with Syria and possibly Lebanon, by the extreme progressive radical left in America, is looked upon as something that is horrific, and it's very interesting. The people of the region who are most effective respect the use of strength, at least the nation states around them, and say, that's a strong country, we want to align with them, and it could lead to peace, but it's morally repulsive to many people. And I think and understandingly when they look at it, but that's what's undermining their support for Israel, which I hope, as they come to learn more about the conflict, the prime minister, there's a new leadership in Israel, that we can move beyond this and regain support for Israel and the Democratic Party. I don't think calling them pro-Hamas is right, but is there a tremendous lack of understanding among America's youth about the conflict, which is contributing to this lack of being supportive of Israel? Absolutely, not even a question.
Ron, thank you for that, and I'm sorry for the chimes in your ear there. I had a computer on the line there. I appreciate you joining us and for clarifying this fully. And listen, we would love to hear from Chris Van Hollen, the senator of Maryland, about this issue too. It does seem like a strange change of tone and focus for him. And I think, sadly, because like so many other Democrats and some Republicans as well, I think he has seen some shifting public support for various reasons, and rather than use his stature and his position to actually enlighten and educate and put in perspective where we stand right now with the state of Israel, I think he's just sort of following the herd. Sadly, that's my opinion.
I wish the senator would talk about the possibilities of peace in the region between Lebanon and Syria. I wish the senator would talk about how Israel's seven-front war has diminished all these strategic threats to the United States and how much better we're standing, and how we would talk about how it has removed Iran as a nuclear threat to Israel, our allies in Europe and the United States. I mean, this war produced a strategic. It has produced a tremendous strategic advantage for the United States in terms of where we sit globally, and it is time that message got out. And it's also time. I think what the situation, things that was most surprising was the personal nature of the attack. I think I wasn't asking for this public spat. I was commenting on the senator's policy decisions, and he responded with something that many people consider very personal. Yeah. And I think that's why you've seen so many national Jewish organizations, local, national, even Ted Cruz and others who have gone ahead and put out statements of support. And he finds himself, in support, and he finds himself a minority, mostly on the way he attacked me as an apologist and as non-representative, which is just language that a 30-year public servant, whom I've worked, by the way, very closely with over the years, should not be engaging in. Again, it's beneath him and beneath the dignity of his office.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. We got to leave it there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.